girls, baseball fans, and history buffs, welcome to this special presentation of the Big Game James Show. Presented by ThinkSlinger.org.
Pitch, swing and a long drive, deep left field, going,
And now, presenting your most whimsical host, Big Game James.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to ThinkSlinger.org's production of the Big Game James Show. I'm your host, James F. Thomas IV, better known as Big Game James. And before we get to today's, I'm going to call it a rant, I have a great announcement to make. I'm excited to make this announcement, actually. We are now in syndication. That's right, folks. Thank you very much. We're now in syndication. We are streaming on iTunes, Stitcher, through the TuneIn app, and on most popular radio apps. Thanks for making that happen. I've worked extremely hard to bring you a baseball show, history show, sports show, what have you, tolerable for your ears, and I thank you all for tuning in and for helping make this happen. This is big news around here, and we are definitely excited to be syndicated. Once again, it's iTunes, Stitcher, and the TuneIn app. You can still listen to us here on Spreaker at Spreaker.com/ThinkSlinger if you so choose. But if you really want to support the show, listen to it on iTunes, Stitcher, or the TuneIn app if you choose at least once, just to get us a couple of listens over there on any of those formats. Maybe they'll give us some free advertising or something, help the show grow some more. That's what we're doing this for, trying to grow the show and make it bigger, and and overall it's a kind of a playground for me to employ my research skills and my love for radio and reporting and all those fun things. But yeah, a big thanks to all of the listeners out there who have made this possible. Thank you. You're helping my dream come true. All right, enough of that. Enough of the sappy stuff. Let's move on to today's topic. As you know, the baseball season is well underway, and what an exciting opening day. I just got to say that right now. What an exciting opening day. What an exciting two opening days. We started out with St. Louis versus Chicago, the Chicago Cubs, losing 3-0 in that first battle, but nevertheless the game was very exciting. Cincinnati taking a back seat this year. Traditionally, they are the team that opens the season, but this year it was all about the Cubbies. 2015 is supposed to be the year that they win it, according to Back to the Future 2. Where's Biff when you need him anyway? I heard the Miami Marlins were looking for him, so if you're out there, Biff, give the Marlins a call. They would love to speak to you. They have some promotions lined up for the 2015 season. Apparently, they're supposed to play the Cubs in the World Series. I don't know how that's going to happen because they're in the same league, but nevertheless, Miami's looking for you, Biff. So today is a bit of a rant, stemming back to opening day. We all know that in the wintertime when the commissioner announced that there was going to be a few rule changes to baseball to try and speed up the game and attract a younger audience, they would be employing a shot clock-like countdown for pitchers. That seems innocuous enough, and I'm ready to embrace rule changes as they happen almost every single year. I love the replays for home runs and certain calls to get the play right. I mean, that's just a fabulous addition to the rules of the game, allowing umpires to get the calls right on a second look on those very close plays that seem to happen in almost every single game. But this new rule is kind of, upon second look and actually experiencing it, I've got a different opinion on this one. I'm not really a fan of it, that is to say the least. You see, the first game, the Orioles taking on Tampa Bay Rays, Pat Tillman's up on the mound getting ready to deliver a pitch, and all of a sudden this shot clock looking thing pops up on the screen, and I'm like, what in the world is that? Now, again, I know that MLB is trying to speed up games, and they added this shot clock looking thing to help, keep pitchers on track and keep them throwing the ball, in a timely manner and keep the game going. But I'm not a fan of this shot clock thing. It's and here's the main reason. To me, one of the most entertaining and most fundamental parts of the game is that showdown between the pitcher and the batter. The batter standing there, he doesn't know when the pitcher is actually going to pop this ball off, and the pitcher is, of course, trying to get in his head. So with this shot clock, the first thing that I noticed was it kind of prepares the batter preemptively to look for the pitch, because if the clock's winding down, he knows that there's like a second or two to go, and he's ready for this ball to come off. It's not like you're standing at a pitching machine and at a batting cage and waiting for the ball, and all of a sudden, bam, the ball's here. No, it's not like that. This is more prevalent than that. This is more preemptive than that. Now a batter can simply check out this shot clock looking thing, and he just kind of knows that the pitcher is going to pitch in this certain time frame. I think at least I felt it took away a big part of why I love watching the matchups, the pitcher versus the batter. You just don't know when the pitcher is going to decide to go into his motion and pop that ball off, and in the same coin, the batter has no idea when he's going to do it either. And this distracts from that. This diverges from that, I feel. So this led me to the question, what's with the movement led by MLB to speed up the game in the first place? Seriously, a time clock to start innings? Come on, man, that's just gets in the way of so much of the game. Sure, baseball games can be a tedious occasion, even for the most enthusiastic fans, but messing with the most fundamental aspect of the game, mind versus mind, the pitcher versus batter versus the entire defense, who are forever adversaries, requires patience and a little guessing. And it should be reintroduced and not shunned by Major League Baseball to the younger faces they are so eager to please, just as it was introduced long ago to us. Now we're being called old fans. I like the pace of baseball. Come on. I always will. I was okay with this whole stop clock or shot clock type thing until I came across an article written by Tyler Kepner in the New York Times that declared attention spans are getting shorter while baseball games are getting longer. Really? Since when? You see, this isn't about attention spans getting shorter. In fact, I argue attention spans haven't changed a bit. It's the processing of an exorbitant and constant amount of information that has changed. Which brings to mind the adages, cum hoc ergo propter hoc, with this, therefore, because of this, and correlation does not imply causation. This, I am resorting to that college side of my brain that comes back ever so often. And perhaps it is envy which blinds the league. So slow down, I say. We need to take a step back and reevaluate this whole clock thing. This also comes with the knowledge, and here's a little bit of baseball history for you. The whole idea of an arbitrary timing, which is supposed to be kept by the umpire, can find its genesis in the 19th century when the St. Louis Browns were locked in a dead heat with the Philadelphia Athletics for the pennant. I believe in I want to say 79, maybe 80, I don't know. Late 19th century, I'm going to go there. I don't have my notes in front of me. Read the book, The Summer of Beer and Whiskey, by the way. It goes into this whole thing. It doesn't really address time, but it does briefly mention this story about the St. Louis Browns versus the Philadelphia Athletics. Nevertheless, they were in a dead heat, and the Athletics had put up like 8 or 10 runs over the course of the first 2 innings against the St. Louis Browns, and their reaction was to stall the game, because at the time, games were not allowed to go past 6 p.m., and if they did, the umpire would call the game, and if it didn't hit, I believe, the 7th inning, if it wasn't at least in the 7th inning, he would have the game replayed in its entirety at a later date. Well, This didn't bode well with the St. Louis Browns. They were down by a huge margin, a margin which back in those days was damn near impossible to recover from. So they stalled. They basically exploited a non-rule and just stalled any which way they could. Now, the umpire could try to speed up the game and encourage people to come up to bat or make pitches, but he had no arbitrary powers to actually throw anyone from the game if they were deemed to be stalling. And he threatened to throw people out of the game. But the players knew better, and they continued to stall. Well, the game made it to 6 p.m. It wasn't the seventh inning, and the game was the game was moved to another day, and it resulted in a tie. By the end of the season, this game would matter because the St. Louis Browns would go on to win the pennant, barely taking it from the Philadelphia A's. Now, fast forward to the TV age, this rule is still intact, and broadcast companies are trying to pay bills in between innings because they're paying these an exorbitant amount of money for the rights to carry these games, and they need to recover some of that cash via advertising in between innings. So they're advertising in between innings, and Major League Baseball essentially agrees to give them a kind of a loose amount of time. I believe it's 2 to 3 minutes to get their advertising in between innings, and the game would pause while the players took the field and warmed up. Now, this part of the game has become such a part of the game, not to be redundant or anything, but it's become such a part of the game that people don't even really recognize it, or they don't even feel it while they're at the stadium. All they know is that players are out on the field warming up, and they don't know that long before television, players would just simply run out into the field and the games would just start. I mean, it was like seamless. But now, because these broadcast companies need to pay some bills, they take the field and they do a little stretching and they get ready for the innings. They sit through the commercials and then they get ready for the inning, and then the game commences, and it seems seamless to us as observers. But now Major League Baseball is seeing that 3 hours is now not the best way, or 3 hours is just too long for a game, is what they're trying to say. Where they're getting this information from, I don't really know. I haven't seen anything scientific. This goes back to that New York Times article by Tyler Kepner that I mentioned a few moments ago. Nothing in that article supported this decree by Tyler Kepner that attention spans are getting shorter while baseball games are getting longer. There was nothing scientific about it whatsoever. It was basically a regurgitation and an echo of Major League Baseball saying, we think we can draw more younger fans by mitigating the length of games by, either shortening them or adding something like a freaking shot clock. And that's where my problem is like we're receiving all this information without any evidence whatsoever that this is actually going to help the game and help its popularity. I'm going to get to some ledger numbers later, in terms of billions of dollars. I'm going to mention that in a little bit. But here's what I have to say about all this. I mean, there's just no evidence to support this whatsoever that shortening games is going to attract a big audience, these giant numbers that they're talking about. So slow down. And here's where I get my old man moment, though I'm not an old man. I still have a lot of my youth and my wits about me, I'd like to think. But anyhow, back in the day, we relied on the local news and morning papers for the previous evening results. This is not back in the day. I'm not talking about back when we used to have to trudge through 5 feet of snow through 5 miles of wilderness to get to school. And on the way, I would slaughter a cow to have a hamburger for lunch. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, when I was a kid, it was always such a joyous moment to get up and open the newspaper to get the results from the night before, because we didn't always get to stay up and watch all the games. There'd be one big story on the game most relevant to the market. For example, a story about the Baltimore Orioles would run on the front page of the sports section in the Frederick Post, which was published about 60 miles from home plate at Memorial Stadium, while the rest of the league relied on a different kind of coverage. their stories would be told using these funny little numbers. That is, the box score on the back